Love is not a feeling you perform like a ritual, nor a virtue you polish for public display. Love is the fundamental recognition that what appears as two has always been one, playing at separation as a dancer plays at stillness between steps. The world of faces, names, arguments, and borders is the fabric turned inside out, the lining presented as the coat, useful for a time but not the garment itself. I am not here to persuade you to be more loving in the ordinary, obedient sense. I am here to tell you that love is what you are, that the distance you feel from others is a necessary illusion through which the unity of life discovers its own contours, as a mountain knows itself only because valleys carve its edges. You are not a solitary spark tossed from an indifferent fire. You are the fire, forgetting its blaze in order to dance as light. This is a scandal to the mind that craves control, because love is not a tool. You cannot wield it like a hammer to fix a broken world, for love is the vision that reveals the world was never broken, only divided by the conventions of thought. The mind splits the uncarved block into this and that, me and you, gaining categories and losing reality in the same breath. The heart, on the other hand, does not reason about unity. It recognizes it the way the tongue recognizes sweetness, directly, immediately, without explanation. The heart does not conclude, it beholds. When you see clearly, you do not attempt to unify what was separated. You see that separation is a way unity explores itself, and love is the understanding of that play. Think of the ocean, laughing at its waves. Each wave rises as if it were an independent creature, rushing forward, cresting triumphantly, and then subsiding into a froth of disappearing names. Yet never once did the wave cease to be the ocean. The froth was the ocean, the crest the ocean, the depth beneath, as the ocean. So too with you. You rise as a name, an address, a biography, and you rush forward into meetings and memories and the thrill of being a distinct someone. But the movement of your life and the stillness beneath it are not two. The understanding of separation and unity is not an intellectual gymnastic. It is the sudden laughter in the middle of an argument when you realize you've been debating with your own reflection in a pond. We must begin by disobeying the common superstition that love is a project. We are taught to acquire it, cultivate it, direct it, and secure it. But love is not a possession. It is the disappearance of the possessor. When you look at a sunset and forget yourself, that's love. When you hear a melody and for those few seconds abandon the commentator in your head, that's love. When you look into another person's eyes and the distance between observer and observed melts like sugar in warm tea, that's love. In those moments, nothing changes in the world. And yet everything is different because the knotted string of the I has loosened and the loop becomes a circle without center or edge. Now, to explore this more deeply, notice how the sense of I is woven. It is a story told in the language of memory and anticipation, stitched together by a running commentary that claims ownership of experience. I am seeing. I am deciding. I am loving. But the seeing occurs without a seer. The deciding happens in the same way a tree spreads its leaves, and the loving is not performed. It blossoms. When you stand by a river, the water flows without asking your permission, and the sound of it is not your achievement. Likewise, your breathing is the wind in the forest of your body. Your thoughts are birds landing and taking off from branches you did not plant. The I that insists on authorship is a useful convention, immensely practical fool, or writing letters and paying bills, but it is not the author of life. It is a stage name, necessary for the play, but always in service to the company. The whole separation is the costume department. It provides the masks, the accents, the quirks, the preferences, everything that gives the performance its texture and humor. Without costumes, the play would be a lecture. Without separation, unity would be a dull blank. But costumes are for the stage. It is a peculiar tragedy that we forget to remove them after the curtain falls and insist on sleeping in them, eating in them, arguing in them, dying in them. Love comes when you unzip the fabric and feel the cool air on your skin again, not because you abandon the character, but because you realize the character has never been other than the actor, and the actor has never been other than the audience, the theater, and the night sky above it all. Perhaps you've noticed that in the moments you feel most separate, you are busy defending something, an opinion, a boundary, a private corner of worth. In those moments, the world shrinks to the size of your concern. But when that defense loosens, even for a breath, the world is suddenly enormous and intimate at once. It is as if you were looking through a keyhole and then, click, the door opens. The view does not merely expand, it dissolves the meaning of inside and outside. Love is the door opening by itself when the keyhole realizes it was only a hole in a door that was never locked. This is not to say that our differences are illusions to be despised or ignored. On the contrary, love relishes difference. Consider music. The beauty of harmony depends on distinct notes. If every note were identical, there would be no melody, only a drone. The art is in the intervals, the relationship between tones. So with us. Your laughter is not mine, your sorrow not mine, your manner of moving through a room not mine, and precisely because of that there can be the gleeful recognition, look, another way the universe has chosen to be. Love is the understand. In that difference is a kind of rhyme. The paradox is this: love reveals unity through the very experience of separation. You feel yourself as a center of consciousness, peering out at a world that often resists your will, and yet the fact you can experience resistance means there is relationship. Relationship is not evidence of alienation. It is the signature of belonging. Even friction is intimacy. Two surfaces meeting, communicating their textures. The trick is to stop thinking of yourself as an isolated marble rolling through a hostile machine, and to see that you are a pattern within a larger dance, moving in response to movements that are also yourself, extended. That is why, when you sit quietly and let the mind settle, there comes a moment when thoughts thin out like fog in the morning and the shape of things brightens. You might call it peace, but it is not an achievement. It is the default, the original face. What unsettles it is not the world, but the anxious attempt to control it. Love, as understanding, is the cessation of that attempt, replaced by a trust so deep that even doubt has a place within it. For trust does not exclude. It includes, and in its inclusion dissolves the conflict. In this trust, separation and unity are seen as two sides of a coin that never leaves your palm. Let me offer a picture. Imagine a great tapestry, vast beyond imagination, woven from threads of light. Each thread is a life, a perspective, a particular memory of being. When you focus on one thread, you see its color, its bends, its knots. You may even believe that this single thread is the whole tapestry. Yet step back, and the thread's place in the pattern is revealed. How it curves into another's arc, how its tension holds the symmetry of a flower, how its absence would unbalance the image. Our trouble is that we have been trained to stare at our single thread until our eyes arc, and then we complain that the world lacks beauty. Love is the permission you grant yourself to lean back and behold the pattern, not to deny your thread, but to understand it in context. But you may say, context does not help when someone harms me, when heartbreak arrives, when the world appears unjust. Indeed, those are not philosophical puzzles to be solved from a distance. They are storms to be lived through. Yet even a storm is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean, revealing its power. The crucial shift is from an attitude of conquest to one of participation. We do not master life. We collaborate with it. The wind howls, the rain lashes the windows, and inside the house you light a candle. That small flame is not a defense against the universe. It is the universe expressing itself as warmth in the middle of cold. Love does not conquer fear as an army conquers a city. It includes fear and makes a home big enough for it to sit down and soften. Consider the way a tree meets winter. It does not resist the frost with argument. It surrenders its leaves, draws its energy inward, and trusts. Come spring, it does not debate whether to bud. It simply does. There is nothing sentimental about this trust. It is practical wisdom, the knowledge of the body in tune with the seasons. We too have seasons of self, times to expand, to speak, to create, times to rest, to listen, to disappear. Separation clamors for constant summer, demanding the fruit without the seed's burial. Unity smiles and lets the seed go underground, knowing that unseen work is still work, that darkness is a womb as much as a night. We stumble when we mistake roles for essence. One day you are the triumphant wave, another you are foam on the shore, with the sun drying you into salt. Roles change because life is change. Love recognizes that the play continues beneath costume changes and scene shifts. This is why attachment to a single identity causes suffering. It is the attempt to freeze a river. The river does not obey. It will carry you whether you cling to the rock or no. Love is the trust that loosens the fingers, not because rocks are bad, but because rivers are true. Let me speak of relationship more intimately. When two people meet, there is always a third thing present, the space between them. That space is not emptiness. It is a field, alive, resonant, sensitive. If you treat that field as a battlefield, every word is a weapon, every silence a tactic. If you treat it as a garden, words become seeds and silence is rain. The lover who understands separation and unity does not attempt to collapse the other into themselves. They recognize the beauty of distance, the necessary interval that allows music to be music. The point is not to merge into a featureless oneness that erases personality, but to discover a deeper joining in which individuality is the way unity celebrates itself. Two candles do not diminish each other's light. They enable shadows to dance in new shapes. We are frightened of being alone, so we clutch. But clutching is a confession of scarcity. Love as understanding moves differently. It opens the hand. This does not mean abandoning boundaries or permitting harm. On the contrary, it means seeing that a boundary can be an expression of love when it protects the conditions for growth. The gardener places a trellis, not to imprison the vine, but to guide it toward the sun. A firm no can be an act of tenderness when it honors the true shape of things. When boundaries arise from fear, they harden and cut. When they arise from love, they are flexible, living edges like the shores that give the sea its music. The ego, our narrative center, has a necessary job, coordinating the daily dance. It is a marvelous secretary. It keeps appointments, remembers names, files documents. Problems begin when the secretary claims to be the company. Then every unexpected event is seen as a threat to its authority. Love smiles at the secretary and offers a cup of tea. You are essential, it says, but you are not the whole. This is not an insult, it is liberation. The secretary can relax. Imagine the relief in letting something larger breathe through your life, not as a mystical abstraction, but as the very air you have been inhaling and exhaling since birth. In this relaxation, compassion arises naturally, not as a moral duty, but as the most reasonable response to reality. For when you see that the one across from you shares your essence, kindness becomes intelligent. You still disagree, of course. Preferences will collide and tempers will flare. But beneath the clash is the recognition. We are the same water taking different shapes. The argument may continue, but the hostility loses its teeth. It becomes, at worst, a thunderstorm over a lake, noise and flashes above, stillness below. Love is not naive. It simply remembers the lake. Another picture. In a marketplace, two potters sell their wares. One potter worries endlessly about the fragility of his clay. Every bump, every child running past is a threat. He scowls, he guards, he shouts. The other potter smiles, not because her pots are unbreakable, but because she knows their value does not end at shattering. If one breaks, the pieces can be arranged into a mosaic. If a handle cracks, it can be mended with gold. She understands that form is not the final arbiter of worth, and so she treats both pot and purchaser with ease. Her love for the craft is not tied to permanence, but to presence. You can live like the second potter. You can handle your life gently because you know it can be remade at every moment. And so the understanding of separation and unity is not a theory for the drawing room. It is the art of living. It is seeing that you are at once a specific person with a specific story and the entirety of life experiencing itself as that story. This double vision, particular and universal, does not split you. It frees you. With it, the E-world regains its vibrancy. Colors are brighter because you are not dulling them with your anxiety. Sounds are clearer because you are not stuffing your ears with commentary. People are more interesting because you're not using them to confirm your favorite ideas about yourself. Love is what remains when the commentator grows quiet. Now, to the practical thread, how this understanding breathes through the ordinary day. Begin with breath itself. Do not force it. Notice it. Let the breath be your teacher. It does not hoard. It receives and releases in a perfect rhythm of trust. You do not negotiate the next inhalation, you allow it. You do not cling to the exhalation, you let it go. Practice relating to thoughts and emotions the way the body relates to breath. When a thought arrives, receive it. When it is done, release it. When an emotion rises, let it swell. When it subsides, let it return to the sea. This simple noticing, gentle, steady, begins to dissolve the illusion that you are the manager of reality. You are its participant. When you walk, walk as if the earth were your own body under your feet, because it is. Let the soles feel the pressure and the gentle roll of weight. The mind will try to turn this into a technique. Let it fail. Do not strain for awareness. Relax into it. Awareness is not something you switch on. It is what remains when the noise quiets. Walking with this ease, you will find the world meeting you halfway. A breeze will speak softly. A leaf will catch your eye. A stranger's face will appear as a book you have wanted to read. In conversation, cultivate the art of empty listening. Do not load your ears with the next sentence you plan to deliver. Leave a little space. That space is not a vacuum, it is an invitation. You will be surprised what people reveal when they are not pressed against the wall of your impatience. Even the person who annoys you carries a message from the universe. How else would you learn where your edges still harden? Let irritation be a bell of mindfulness. Ah, you say inwardly, here is a place where I still take my costume too seriously. Smile at it. You need not condemn yourself for being human. Simply notice the tightness, and in noticing, it begins to loosen. When you set about your work, do it as a musician plays scales. A scale is repetition, and repetition can be dull unless you love the instrument. Do not treat your tasks as punishment. Treat them as opportunities to move gracefully. Make coffee as if composing a brief symphony. The kettles hiss, the steams rise, the cups wait in your hand. Love does not demand grand gestures. It is content to saturate the ordinary with presence. In this saturation, your actions simplify. You do what is needed, you do it well, and you do not add needless commentary. Strangely, results often improve when you cease measuring them every 5 minutes. In relationships, practice the discipline of truthful kindness. Kindness without truth is flattery. Truth without kindness is cruelty. The union of the two is love in action. Speak clearly, but not to win. Speak to reveal. And listen, not to judge, but to understand. When conflict arises, and it will, return to the space between you as to a garden you both tend. Ask silently if you must, what would help this field bloom? Sometimes the answer is a boundary, sometimes it is an apology, sometimes it is laughter. Do not be shocked when the answer is silence. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is communication too deep for words. Care for your body as a beloved creature entrusted to you. Eat when hungry, rest when tired. Move when energy asks to move. Do not make a religion of your habits. Make them humane. Separation thrives on harshness, on rules brandished like spears. Unity thrives on friendliness, on rules held like walking sticks, helpful for balance, dropped when the ground is even. Your body is not your enemy. It is your ally, the instrument through which the symphony of existence plays your part. Treat it with respect, and it will teach you the rhythms you've forgotten to hear. When fear visits, seat it at your table, pour it tea. Ask it where in your body it resides. Breathe there. Love is not the exile of fear, but its transformation. Fear is energy misnamed. Understood, it becomes vigilance without panic, care without contraction. When grief arrives, open the door wide. Grief is love's shadow. It appears when life rearranges itself and we must say goodbye to a form we cherished. Let grief cleanse the windows. You will find afterward the light more tender. To anchor all this, adopt simple rituals, not as superstitions but as reminders. Each morning before the devices awaken, place a hand on your heart and another on your belly and feel the rhythm of life. Whisper, if you like, thank you, not to anyone in particular, but as the breath of appreciation that says yes to the day. At night, review your hours with kindness. Do not itemize faults. Notice moments of presence, the way a traveler collects stamps, this meeting, that smile, the way the light struck the floor at noon. Gratitude is not forced cheerfulness. It is seeing clearly that the tapestry is gorgeous even when one thread tangles. And when you encounter the suffering of others, remember this: you are not the savior and you are not powerless. You can be present, and presence is a form of power that does not bully. Offer help where you can. Where you cannot, refuse to abandon your tenderness. Sometimes the most loving act is to stay, to breathe, to bear witness without turning away. In that willingness, something mysterious happens. The person before you is no longer a problem to be solved, but a fellow wave in whom you recognize the ocean. Compassion, then, is not a duty, but a recognition. This, too, is myself. Finally, practice the art of joyous uselessness. Sing without recording, dance without posting, stare at clouds with no intention to interpret. When you free moments from the economy of purpose, they reveal their intrinsic luminosity. It is not that purpose disappears, it arises naturally when needed, but it no longer sits on the throne. In those purposeless minutes, you taste unity directly, for the self that measures worth has stepped aside, and what remains is life playing, exactly as it has always played, in children and birds and rivers and stars. Let us turn to the deeper well, to the transformation that occurs when this understanding matures in the heart. The ego, long accustomed to guarding the gate, begins to trust the traffic. It learns that every visitor, joy, sorrow, desire, boredom, is a messenger carrying the same seal. From the whole. Resisting fewer guests, the house becomes spacious. You do not vanish into some ethereal mist. You become more vividly yourself, because what you are is no longer squeezed into a mask. Your laughter is freer because it has ceased to be a defensive performance. Your tears are cleaner because they are not tangled in shame. Even your anger becomes lucid, a boundary spoken by the body without the froth of self-righteousness. In this clarity, the human condition is not a problem, but a poem. Birth and death, success and failure, union and loss. These are verses in the great stanza of becoming. You will still prefer health to illness, companionship to loneliness, comfort to discomfort. Preferences are human. But preference no longer calcifies into panic when the opposite arrives. You bow to the arrival and the departure with the same courtesy. Thank you for coming. Thank you for leaving. This is not apathy. It is the tenderness that comes from seeing that everything is a guest and the house is large. Letting go of the ego does not mean destroying it. It means seeing through it the way you see through a window. Recognizing the view is larger than the frame. The window remains. It is useful for keeping out the rain. But you do not mistake the glass for the sky. In practical terms, this translates to humility without humiliation. You can say, I don't know, and feel no diminishment. You can change your mind without collapsing. You can apologize without bargaining for absolution. Such gestures are not moral trophies. They are simply what happens when the illusion of isolation thins and the intelligence of the whole breathes through you. Spiritual freedom is not an escape from the world. It is intimacy with the world so complete that the idea of escape makes no sense. You do not live from a fortress, but from a hearth. Warmth radiates outward because there is no longer a fear of depletion. You are the river tapping a deeper spring, not a puddle anxiously guarding its edges. This freedom does not produce indifference. It produces responsiveness. You find yourself saying yes to the appropriate no, and no to the seductive yes. Your decisions are not dictated by the approval of an imaginary audience, but by the resonance felt in the body, the bell that rings when you are aligned. Meaning, in this light, is not something you extract from life with philosophical tweezers. Meaning arises when you participate fully. The dancer does not ask, mid-leap, what does this mean? The leap is the meaning. When you give yourself to the moment gives itself to you, and that marriage is what we call significance. The mistake is to search for a meaning that will finally end the search. The search ends, not because you found the last word, but because you realized the words were a celebration not a cage. You may fear that such